Nothing like it.
Beautiful spot to be.
But we caught no fish.
Yeah.
Is that a disappointment?
They're out there. No. Just being on the river. The river gives and the river takes. So some days you just got to take what you can get. Anytime being on the river for me, though, is a good time.
So I guess that's why they call it fishing and not catching.
Yeah. Yeah. They're out there jumping, that's for sure. But if we went out there right now, we would get swept downriver a little bit. But just beautiful to look at.
I was coming down the trail and I saw the sign that says, "Watch out when they honk the horn."
Yeah.
Obviously they honked it before we got here, but the
Yeah.
water is moving right now.
Yeah, yeah.
So where are we?
We are out on the Red River in Heber Springs. And the dam is generating, so the water levels come up. And what you're hearing there is a boat. You know, that's the way to fish when the water starts generating. But this has world-class trout. It's a beautiful place to be.
Of course I knew that, but I was saying that for the benefit of our audience, if
Sure.
there happens to be one.
Sure.
And we're at a park,
Yep. JFK.
JFK.
Yeah. Beautiful park to come to. At the bottom, we literally are at the bottom of Greer's Ferry Dam.
Greers Ferry Lake, Arkansas, Central Arkansas. JFK came in 1963.
Yeah, it was the last, I think the last public event he did before he went to Dallas and died, was assassinated. It was a big deal. Came through Heber Springs and drew thousands of people, and it was a big celebration. My understanding is Bill Clinton was a boy and came to that event, and that's what planted the idea in his head to maybe run for president one day.
Huh, yeah, I didn't know that part.
I believe that is the story.
But I do know that that is a mark. I was just a boy at that time too.
Mm-hmm.
We lived in a remote ranch in southeast Montana, 40 miles from town. No electricity, no power. We had a generator and a 32 volt light plant and gas lights that we burned. But even we got the news that JFK had been killed in Dallas.
Yeah.
It came in the form of a National Geographic, believe it or not, because my mother subscribed, and the episode or the issue that came out that month was of his funeral, and there was a vinyl record folded in the pages of the National Geographic, and that record had the audio of the funeral.
Wow. Yeah. It's tragic. Absolutely tragic.
And the nation grieved, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Not unlike something that has just recently happened
Yeah.
for us.
Yeah, with Charlie Kirk.
And the nation should grieve.
Well, and then the young lady that was from Ukraine as well. That was killed on the train. That was caught on video. We had some crazy stuff. A school shooting happened, and then some shooting of officers in Pennsylvania, and then just yesterday in Dallas, some shootings.
I think it'll be okay.
All right. We'll see. Might just have a picture of a tree over there. Voices.
That one is still recording. That one is supposedly recording the audio.
Okay.
But these devices also record to themselves.
Okay.
So
Sweet.
we should still be getting our audio.
Okay.
I'm learning.
Yep. It's a fancy contraption.
I'm motivated to record these is not something new for me. I've had this idea for several years now, and I kept putting it off because I, maybe didn't have the equipment or didn't have the editing skills, didn't have everything I needed, or so I thought. But recently, with the tragedy that has happened in our country with the passing of Charlie Kirk, I'm an old man, 68 years old. You be my confessor for a minute?
Sure.
Motivation. Do you see me as an individual that has lacked in motivation?
That's probably not what I would describe you with, Pop.
Well, I didn't. I always fought against that. The idea that I didn't have motivation. But I looked at individuals that I encountered in my life, the men that I respected the most. I'll give a couple of examples. In my construction career, I worked as a carpenter and then a superintendent for a man named Bob Dwyer, who built Tannenbaum, the place where I've built some beautiful homes since then. But earlier in my career, I watched him.
Yep.
And he would look at me and he would say, TCB. And that is, take care of business.
Yep, taking care of business.
And I'd come to him with an issue we were having, and he'd say, Colin, you could hunt around for excuses all your life, but you ain't going to find the damn thing. And problem solving. We'd be sitting there with him at his desk, and we'd be talking about this. And while we were talking, his hand is reaching to the phone, and he's making a call, and he is taking care of business. So the moment to move is now. And I've done that, because I've seen that demonstrated for me by people like that. Another example that I'll use, I worked in the prison ministry for 10 years.
Yeah.
Going up to the jail, preaching to the boys, baptized hundreds through that. That begins somewhere, right? And I've knew of the prison ministry, and I'd like to get involved in that. I thought to myself. And then one day, I was visiting a church, and here is Brother Ray Green, 80 years old at the time. He's there in church, and he comes up and shakes my hand with a big smile on his face, and he says, hello, I'm Ray Green. I work with the jail ministry up at the jail. And I'm like, oh, I've always been kind of interested in something like that. And he says, what are you doing tomorrow?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, tomorrow I went to the jail. So I've been watching Charlie Kirk videos and his team there, and they're trying to make some sense out of all this. And they are remembering his dynamic. And he always punched through. The man built a pretty incredible movement. Whatever you think of his political views, he built Turning Point USA.
He did, yeah. Dropped out of college.
Yep. And did it
Took off.
because he engaged and punched through.
Yeah.
And he took care of business. And he didn't wait for tomorrow. If he had an idea, he followed it through. And
Yeah.
I've been sitting here with this idea of having these conversations with individuals that I know have punched through. And so I've drug you out here in the woods because I know you have punched through.
Well, you didn't have to drag me. I love it out here.
Well,
But,
no, I know I didn't
I
have to
thank you for
drag.
that, though.
I had to get you out the way.
Yeah. I thank you for saying that.
So why don't you tell me and whoever might be listening a little bit of your story, your beginning
Yeah.
story.
For sure. Well, and I'm glad to just be out here with you. So I'm half Australian and half Texan.
Okay.
My mom's Australian, and my dad was from Texas, and they met when he was on leave during the Vietnam era. They pulled into Sydney, and they met. I believe it was his first tour, and they wrote letters. This is before email, before texting, and you'd be out on ships, so they were going to write. So it'd take a while to get a letter, and they wrote back and forth for I believe 5 or 6 years, just getting to know each other through mail. And eventually he proposed through mail, and she said she felt sorry for that yank and said yes. And when he got out of the Navy, he moved to Australia, and they lived there and had my sister, who's 7 years older than me, and myself. And then in 78, they moved to the States to be with the Bradshaw family, my dad's side. And what they thought was going to be a great move turned out to be really, really difficult. The country was in a recession, and he thought education was free, and I don't know what all he thought, but my mom moves from Sydney, Australia, a city, to rural Arkansas, and it was hard. Those were hard years. I witnessed my parents having to both work and still barely make what they needed to take care of us, but we did have what we needed, but you just didn't waste a lot. Didn't have air conditioning in Arkansas until I was 16, and so it can be done. Didn't eat out a lot, never had Jordans as a kid, Walmart clothes, things like that, but worked hard, and that was modeled for me. To work hard, to don't ask for handouts, to use your head, and to be grateful. And I had a good example of a married couple in front of me. I never heard my father be disrespectful to my mom, and they had a beautiful marriage. I know it wasn't easy all the time, but he respected her, and I knew that. And so I was taught, to treat people well, to also don't make excuses, and to try to get things done. And, if you're going to say you're going to do something, you ought to do it. Be honest, and, family's something to be respected, God, family, and my dad, he didn't talk much about the war, but, the love of country was a big deal as well. So I grew up loving America and loving Australia. And I grew up with a bigger worldview, having that around me. Plus, I had an aunt, uncle that lived on either side of me that also lived in different parts of the States, and then traveled the world at times with the Air Force. And so I grew up around military, but I grew up in rural Arkansas. So I had a very interesting subculture in rural Arkansas, and was always taught to think bigger and appreciate different things. So fast forward to, when you're older and my sister's in college, and then I'm 16 and we lose my father in a tragic accident. He was killed in a car wreck.
Mm.
And that was tough. And I went down, I wish I could say that I handled that great and just be dug in and just plowed through, but I did not, the way one would think at that time. I did get through that, but it was messy and got into some trouble. Kind of a tough story about, where kind of broke my mom's heart right after she lost her dad. She kind of lost her son for a while. But I was hurting and just didn't know, what to do with that. I'm a counselor now, but, growing up, feelings weren't really a priority for anything. And so I just tried to survive, and I did. But caused a lot of damage. You have people who get in pain that don't handle that well, they're going to cause damage, and that's what I did. And I had a daughter during that time in my life that probably helped keep me alive, just because I knew I had to live for her and take care of her. And then fast forward to when I was about 20, on my 20th birthday, your daughter came to my birthday party. And not long after that, we just were dating. Really, we were together from that. We've been together since I was 20. I can confidently say that. But I was searching for just meaning in life, and felt like I had tried just about everything else. And then, had met you, and then we started talking about the Lord more. And I grew up loving God, but kind of fell away. Not kind of, I did fall away. Then became intrigued with the Scripture, and you and I would study about that. And then September 19th, 1997 is when I really gave my life back to God and was baptized at Grease Ferry Lake that feeds this river that we're at, actually. And after that, I wanted to just live well and to do things that were going to glorify God in the kingdom and not bring any more shame on myself or my family. And so married your daughter and started building a life together, and we've had 3 beautiful children together. And we've been married 28 years this coming January, which is crazy because it's just flown by. But during that time, trying to figure out what path you're supposed to be on was a challenge for me. I did construction work for a while, working, of course, with you, and
Yep.
that really helped me a lot. Helped me learn work ethic and the pride, the good pride that you can take in like putting your hands to something that I think a lot of people, a lot of youth today especially, don't get. That when you do something like you frame a house or you do a project, even if it's finishing concrete or something, there's an appreciation you get for how these things happen.
I've built a lot of beautiful things.
Yep.
People are living in beautiful homes because I helped them realize that.
Yep. Absolutely.
And there's some pride in that. But the most pride that I have, or the most gratification, really, it's not pride. It is a sense of accomplishment when I can teach a young man to work.
Yeah. Well, there's a line that the Avett brothers have that I love, and it says, "I want the kind of pride that my mama had, not the kind that the Bible says is bad." And I think that's that pride that we're talking about, or you put your hands to something and you dig in and you see what you're made of when
Well,
it's
this
hard.
goes back to punching through.
But yeah,
what I was talking
exactly.
about.
And that sort of having that modeled for me, getting to do that when I got older, building homes, helped me. That really helped me go to school, because I thought I was too dumb to go to school. Obviously wasn't. Once I treated school serious and treated it like a job, I punched through with that. I thought I was dumb, and when I went to college, and I remember when I made an A in college algebra and trigonometry and didn't have to take the final, I remember thinking that, I'm not dumb. And the reason I got that A was because of work ethic and punching through, like you're talking about. And then Jamie and I moved around the country, and with ministry, and there's ups and downs with that, but eventually we get to 2018 and we opened up a business together. And with her work experience, and she's got, had work ethic stronger than I did before I met her, and she's always kept that. We both together, powers combined, help open a incredible private practice in trauma therapy, and that has just flourished. We're going on our 8th year, and started from solo with me to where now we have about a dozen people working with us. And I mean, we get to work and be blessed with helping people in the most delicate situations and painful things, but also in a way help them punch through. And I'm so grateful for that. I'm so grateful that we have the opportunity to give back that way. On top of that, there's not enough time to talk about, just how with the challenges in parenting and, being broke at times and all that stuff that you just learn from. But
Well, there's core points that I think that we can make in this simple conversation.
Yeah.
And we don't need to belabor it. But it has to do with the idea moment and the follow through. And there is
taking that step.
That's what allowed me to be successful in my business. That's what allowed me to be successful in the ministry. And that's what allows anyone who is doing a thing. You come to it, you go through it. And there's some difficult moments, and you got to learn a thing or two to make it happen.
Yeah.
But until you pour in, you won't make it happen.
Yeah, and I'd say that there's that thing for everybody. Everybody has that thing that they were designed for. Everybody has something to offer to something. And you don't know until you know. And the way I think you get there is you have to be willing to say yes to opportunities. Especially when you don't know exactly how it's going to happen. And when I say that, I'm not talking like, a gambling addiction sort of mentality thing. I'm talking about something that's calling to you, and that there's something in you that gets motivated or lifted up. And it's like, this is what I'm made for.
Folks, this brings me some delight. You may have gathered in the conversation we didn't properly introduce ourselves, but Ian is my son-in-law. And he's more than that. He is a confidant and friend. We are compatriots.
Yep.
That is born out of struggle.
Yep.
We went through the struggle farm together.
Yep.
And I watched you struggle from the beginning. And I tried to ease it for you. And then I also stood back and allowed it.
Mm-hmm.
And because I knew.
I got the scars to prove it.
And then I saw you overcome. And now I've got a really deeper love and respect for you.
Feelings mutual. Yeah, I couldn't have gotten to where I have by myself. You poured into me, and I learned a lot from literally working under the sun, the hardship of the sun, where there was no shade unless you made it.
Yep.
And I remember times like being up on a roof and you asking me measurements about this or that, and I'd be afraid to have the wrong thing, but you had to call something out. And if you called it out and it was wrong, you just had to cut it again. And I learned confidence through that. I learned a lot of confidence through that hasn't left me. But also a lot of humility. Because when you don't know, you need to listen, and you need mentorship. And I think a lot of young folks today, I really would say just a lot of people, especially in the field that I work in now, didn't have great mentorship in certain areas of their life that was really needed. And it doesn't leave you. Like it'll come up in those feelings of insecurity and whatnot. And the way you learn is you have to just say yes, and get humble and be willing to be taught. And that's what happened when, we met. And I needed a job. I started hauling mud.
You have to have good people around you too.
I think so. Absolutely.
And there's providence. Because ultimately, your first look was to God, to really understand Him. I remember Jamie, even though she didn't understand or even agree with exactly where I was at the time,
Mm-hmm.
she knew that I knew some things. And she told me, you need to talk to Ian. And she told Ian, talk to Dad,
Mm-hmm.
because there were some serious questions that you had, like,
Yeah.
obviously born of your experience. How could God do what,
Yeah.
or allow to happen
Yeah.
what happened to you?
Can a good God allow suffering? Yeah.
And there is, that is probably one of the deepest questions that a person can ask. But
Mm-hmm.
God is there to answer that. And He answered that for you too. I'll give a short answer. God is more interested in us coming to an understanding of our need for Him than He is
Mm-hmm.
in giving us soft lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't know how to name that when I was young, but I felt that in me. And then that question got articulated better as I started studying people that had gone through things that were asking the same question, like C.S. Lewis. Um, and, his book, The Problem of Pain. He said that's the atheist's best argument, that if God's so good or if God's real, why does He allow terrible things to happen? That's the atheist argument right there. So if God is real and He allows these things to happen, one, He's not as powerful as He says He is because He doesn't stop it. And then two, He must not be good because He allows us to get hurt. And then what do you do with that, And that's been the struggle of humanity, is trying to understand where we've come from. Why are we here? It's just those three questions. Where did I come from? Why am I here? And where am I going? Am I just a coincidence of time and energy and space and chemistry and evolution and all that? Or am I created with a specific purpose that a creator, I believe the creator, had from the beginning of time? That there would never be another Colin before or after the way you are, never be another Ian before or after the way that I am, or anybody else in this world. That you are fearfully and wonderfully made, even though we're born into struggle. There's an author I love, John Eldridge, that says we are born into a world at war, and in that world we're in the middle of a beautiful love story, and that love story is God after our heart. And that's the question, all right? That's the question Job had. It's the question that so many people have had. Is like, God being good, does that mean He's always going to keep me safe? And that was the question I was really asking. And what I've come to understand is God is good, but God is also wild. Like He allows, look at creation. You see it all around us. It's even this river right now. It's like there's just certain things I cannot do. Like I ought not to go into this river right now because I'll get, it's moving too swift. You can't live on top of Mount Everest. Don't go wrestle with the grizzly bear. There's some common sense things that we just think, well, we'll just do whatever we want. It's like there's this understanding, or this rule or this law that something else is bigger than us, that is around us, and that we're living in this thing. And I don't think that necessarily implies that God created evil. But a lot of people have said that, well, that's what that implies. I don't think that's a necessary conclusion. I do believe there is evil, but it's not that God created it. But, it's like out of the C.S. Lewis Chronicles of Narnia, when Lucy's talking to Mr. and Mrs. Beaver, and they tell her about this lion named Aslan. And so C.S. Lewis is trying to break it down so where everybody can understand what God is like. And she says, "Oh, he's a lion." And he's like, "Yeah, he's a great lion." And she says, "You know, is he safe?" And Mr. Beaver says, "No, he's not safe. He's a lion, but he is good.
Huh.
He is good." And my journey's helped me dive into that, what that means and what that is. And I respect and appreciate that about God. And I don't understand all of that still, but I'm understanding more and more throughout that journey. And I think it's not necessarily an understanding, but an acceptance of it, is that there's something bigger than us going on. And we get to be a part of it. And there's an invitation for us to be a part of it. We don't have to be afraid of that.
The weather is absolutely beautiful right now.
Yeah.
It is pretty much perfect. It's one of those evenings where I can't even feel my skin, right?
Yeah.
It's not warm, it's not cold, it's just perfect. Sound of the river going by. But I have been in situations of extreme pain.
Yeah.
I have been in situations of extreme sorrow.
Yep.
I have felt tremendous guilt and tremendous joy.
Mm-hmm.
And all of those emotions kind of make me what I am. But they're not here now.
Yeah.
Right now, I am just completely content to be in this moment.
Yeah.
So God is building us by
Yeah.
our experiences to be. And my hope, my prayer always is that as I live and grow, I will always be in love with His presence.
Yeah. When you get moments like this, like right now, it's kind of a perfect moment. But one thing that's consistent is that it's temporary,
Temporary.
right?
And this too shall pass.
Because if it gets humid out here, the mosquitoes show up. You know, it can get pretty miserable pretty quick, just with the shifting of the thermometer. Right now, I can feel that cool breeze off this water, and it just feels great. But what I've recently come to really just start focusing on is this concept that it seems like the things that we go through in this life is pointing us to something.
Uh-huh.
It's pointing us to something. What I mean by that is the sweetest moments, the best moments, the perfect moments, you know, they're fleeting, but it's like there's something in us that wants that draws us to that. It's like, what is that thing in us that's drawing us to these moments that we desire to have the perfect meal, or, you know, the perfect day, or the perfect fishing experience, or whatever. And where I'm at with that is I believe that's really a remnant of what was experienced in the first days with Yahweh, with the Creator, and that what those experiences are pointing us to something where we actually belong. Because there's times I have conversations with people that are incredible people who don't want to be alive, who contemplate taking their life because they're so stressed out and they're so overwhelmed. It's like it's too much. And it's like, you know, are we made for that pain? You know, I don't necessarily think we're made just to live in pain, but if you're going to live, you're going to suffer. That's a part of this rule. That's a part of this life. It takes effort, like you're talking about, to punch through. And what it seems like is this desire in us to want better, to want more moments where it's just that perfect feeling and all that. It seems like it's pointing us to something that we were made for, that is where we actually belong. I believe that to be the new heaven and the new earth. It's the promise of what's to come. It's eternity set in our heart.
That's right.
And God has given us moment after moment, experiences after experiences, even though we suffer greatly, even though we go through hell at times, that point us to something, that there's something that's better in store for us. And so, you know, being grateful is a necessary way to live. But this understanding of like, can we, is it okay to want something more in that regard? It's like, absolutely. It's like we were made for that. We were made to live in glory. We were made to live in perfect union with the Creator.
And we are given time to come to an understanding of that.
I think that's part of the journey here. It's figuring out.
Because we have to come to an understanding.
We were made for more.
We have to come to an understanding. The momentary events in life are leading us someplace.
It seems to have a purpose behind it, a method behind the madness.
A method, yeah. Well, thanks, Ian.
Yeah.
I know that this is, okay, you helped me punch through. I've got my first chat.
Glad to do it.
And hopefully we can find other individuals who want to discuss some things,
Absolutely.
We really didn't have an agenda when we were sitting down, but I think we had a good conversation.
Yep. You bring them down here, they'll talk, that's for sure.
Appreciate you, my friend.
You too, Pop.
Okay.
See that dog in the front of the boat?
Dog?
Yeah, that dog's in heaven right there.
Living his best life.
Yep.
Now we'll see if I can do something with this.
Yeah,